Right, we're live. We're live. Hello, hello. Welcome to 151. We're going to talk about Blood and the Stars, Book 1. Carlos here. Introduce yourself. Oh, you actually got the book. Oh, that's amazing. I've got it on audio.
There you go. Duel in the
I
Dark,
love.
Book
Yes.
1. I'm Carlos with Spire Metro Books. Joe's graciously had me on to discuss some things as he invited me to do a little read along with him. Now, Joe, you're much further.
Yes.
You're much further in the series,
We
right?
read. Yeah, I'm up to like the 14,
Wow.
maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only in book 1, so you know where a lot more of this will go.
So he's just done the 18th book and he's finished it, and the 18th is the last book. He just this week, or what week? Yeah, this week. Yeah, this week. It was this week. Yeah, this week he finished it. Just so you know, I'm on my iPad, so if I lag or anything happens, it's that. Yeah, I'll just to say about like the story. He does a really good job. Now, the first one was definitely like it does its job as a single book. Then the second one's just expand out, and there's a lot more stuff happens, and it changes a lot. A lot of stuff goes in different directions than what you think was going to happen. I remember like, oh, I didn't expect this to happen, and then it's like the story just changes and goes on, and it's really, really good. I think it's really good anyway. Yeah, so definitely keep going. We'll keep doing it. We'll do the second one, and we'll get some more of these. And my computer gets fixed soon, so I'll be able to not have an iPad because my signal's gone Wi-Fi, and my Wi-Fi drops out, and it's just I cry. So yeah, so that's that. Anyway, let's talk about the book then. Overall, what did you think?
Say that again.
Oh, sorry, my signal went. I said, overall, what did you think of the book?
Overall, I thought book 1 was good. You know, we've been doing some other of these like space opera books, and I thought that this one did a much better job in that, at least from my experience, with military, in terms of the actual characters themselves and a portrayal of more of the crew. There's a stylistic change there. He had more of the crew's backgrounds and backstories that were making it more a relationship based, which provided deeper stakes to the action. So I thought he did that very well. I thought that the plot was very interesting in basically these like 1v1 type of scenario. And I thought that the backstory on the leadership on the Confederation side with Baron being the hero was kind of tropey, but in a good way, to kind of tie in some of the things that he has done so much different from other books of the like. But you know, it wasn't. I wouldn't say like I have to read this and everyone, type of thing. It's not the best book I've ever read, but that was more from like the scope of the story. Like you said, it's really a self-contained book, so it didn't get deep in a lot of things, and there's a conflict that we're told about that we don't really get to see anything of, and so I'm like, why do I care? So that's where some of the negatives I had, but overall, good.
Yes, yeah. So the next book, it kicks off bigger. The battle does happen, and they got to deal with that. And I'm not going to spoil and say anything, but it expands, and then you do get into a lot of the spy work and the sabotaging and the corruption, and there's a lot of that sort of stuff that happens. There's a lot more political stuff happening in the other books, and where this one was very, you saw the agency, and there's a little bit of it, sort of just a bit of a tease of like, we've got an agency here. there's a little bit of the what's the U one
The
called? I don't know
Union?
what it's called now. Union. So you get a little bit of the Union and like the Sector 9 and the stuff that happens with them, and that's expanded a lot more in the other books, and they have a much major role. There's stuff that happens like you see it coming. There's some stuff that's like come in and interesting stuff. Like it's not the advanced levels like Game of Thrones sort of level of like so many interweaving
Right.
plots, but there are a lot of threads that do happen on the other books. But with this one, it was just this is the character. If this story works, I've got a lot more other stories and I can go everywhere because you see a little bit about the Alliance, you see a little bit, you hear about other unaligned systems, the Union, obviously Confederacy and stuff like, but you don't see nothing of all of them really. You have like a few little brief bits in a chapter of each one. You've got the beginning with the Alliance, with Kat talking to the like uncle, whatever geezer he is called, not his uncle, but yeah, her uncle. I mean, and then you've got the intelligence of Confederacy. You see a little bit of that, and you get to see a little bit of the Union, but you don't. That's it, really. It's mostly about Kat's point of view and Tyler Barron's point of view, and how they're very similar. They was very much like complement each other and stuff, which I did find out a bit cheesy. I didn't like that. There was a bit too mirrored. One thing I will say, it's like they could have been. Like they didn't have to be so mirrored. It was so on your nose that they're so alike, but just because of how she was brought up, to how he was brought up, is why they're different. And it was part of it. What I did like is even though it was skill, it was sheer story luck. Why he won, why she didn't, and her hesitantness as well.
Yeah.
The ship battles as well.
Yeah. So I thought the dynamic. So if anybody isn't familiar with the story, basically the really quick version of it is the world set up where you have the Confederacy, you have the Union, and you have the Alliance. The Alliance is akin to like Sparta. The Confederacy is considered like a democratic, pros and cons of modern day Western society here on Earth. And then the Union is like a despotic, tyranny, the antithesis of the Confederation. And so those two are like the brutal enemies, and the Alliance is this third party that is much smaller, much weaker, but has a great military. And there's a
very aggressive.
pending alliance with the Union, the bad guys, and them two coming together. And Kat is part of the alliance, right?
Yes, and Tyler Barron, he's obviously a Confederate.
Yeah, he's the Confederate. He pilots the
and he's kind of like
Dauntless.
royal, Dauntless, and he's very he's like royalty. So his grandfather, Second War, helped Union, and then he was part of the Third War, which he then ended up getting killed when Tyler Barron was a young kid, and then now the Fourth War. It does at the end. They do say it kicks off, don't they?
They give a
just at the end. They get some message.
Yeah, they get some R&R, and then it's like, all right, got the call kind of thing.
Yeah, he was originally on the front lines patrolling where everyone else was, and just by story luck, obviously, he has to go to a really far away part of Confederacy.
That happens a lot in this book
because everyone else is full up, and at the same, and then at the same time, Cat gets sent over as like if you get and hold this station, we can come over and fight in 6 months, so they can take some more space, because they was worried that if they didn't take space, if Union did beat the Confederates, then the Union would then take on them, and they wanted to they do like they're very aggressive. The Alliance, they like taking space, and they're very brutal as well. They have classes of people that they conquer, so, plebs and there's plebs and something else, aren't they?
Yeah, plebs, they're basically
I can't remember what the other one is.
once
But
they
it's basically
conquer a
like
space, they
ones are just
become
slaves.
slaves. Yeah, serfs, I think, would be a closer term because they're skilled labor.
Yes, they have slaves who go into all like the mines and do all the toxic and the bad jobs, and then you get skilled ones who then can become citizens, and then there's a whole sort of thing like that. And they in the other books they dive onto a lot of this stuff, and a lot of this stuff they get expanded. You see a lot more of the Alliance and the culture, and you see the Union. The Union's very rough. It's not a nice place. Um, Confederates is very mixed as well. You've got capital and we're going to details because other books. We've got like the capital, all the stuff in there, and then you've got like the outer rims and the Iron Belt and all that stuff, and they're all very different locations because Tyler Barron's the XO. She come from a really rundown place, and she worked her way up, and she was getting the final shot, didn't she, and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, so what did you think of the ship fighting and this style of stuff?
Yeah, no, I thought it was very different. Like we've done, I've read Revelation Space and the Lost Fleet series and several other space battle opera type of things. And this one was unique. And the
Mm,
uniqueness of the book is probably one of the best attributes that it has. Um, there was some dealing with time dilation, very limited. Um, but the fact that it reminded me, have you ever seen that movie Enemy at the Gates? It's the German and Russian snipers are going at each other and they're trying to one up each other.
oh yes,
It
yes,
th-
yes,
that's the whole vibe I had through this
yes.
book. Is like it's really, yes, there's he uses hints at what the bigger, deeper story and world building is. Like even when he just mentions about the Confederacy. They explain the Confederacy and through the eyes of Tyler Barron, and he says, with all its good and bad, or something along those lines. Um, and I was like, oh, so that means that it's not all peachy clean on his side of the things. Uh,
Mm-mm.
so the fact that they had this, we fight, we back up, we fight again, we do some uh
Mm-hmm.
uh almost like the helmet in the
Set
rifle
traps
trick.
and
Yeah, like, hey, snipe over here so I could actually get this shot off over
yeah,
there. Um, kind of tactics. It was very interesting. I think is probably the best part about the book, aside from the sacrificial storylines.
yeah. The ground they had quite a bit of ground battle. Yeah, quite a bit of it, and like I did enjoy that, and just the whole concept of all that, and that they dug out, they went guerrilla warfare, they hid out and fought, and it just what I liked is how good the Confederation is because they have the Alliance did say how they don't believe their intel and don't believe that they're as weak as the Union say because they stopped the Union 3 times prior to that, and I think this did a good job at prompting up how good the Federation is. It's just the what the system is what fails them, but like the actual like the Marines and the ships and the weapons and the Navy, they are very good at what they do. Um, just not they're just not aggressors in this, compared to the Union and the Alliance.
Yeah, I liked how.
So, what did you reckon to the? Oh,
No,
gone.
no,
Sorry.
I didn't. I liked how there wasn't a big gulf in capabilities. It wasn't like, oh,
Mm,
we could shoot them before they could shoot us, or we have this high tech missile, but we only get like one shot at it, kind of thing, or laser, where we have to basically set up to get this one thing to go.
mm,
I like how there wasn't that in the book, and so it put it all on the commanders and their tactics and whatnot, and that's where the respect portion came from
mm.
between the two commanders. Um, as the fight kind of laid out, and so it was almost like a cat and mouse game.
Yes, they mirrored very well the naval fight and how it was one side was on the back foot and then they swapped over and they got the attack and then equal damage and so on, back and forward, and then the ground was again back and forward, and it only changed at the end when they got that reinforcements turn up, and then it changed on the ground, and just by them having them he shot the engines out of the ship, and that's what changed to give him time. So
well, yeah, they also had the section where they baited them. The trap,
Yep.
Where it made it appear like they were weak when they weren't. And the sacrifice. I don't know how spoilerific you want to.
You talk about the final.
You want to get to this?
Yeah, go into it. We'll just go.
So by far my favorite part. Yeah. So by far my favorite part was I want to get his name right. Was Sam Carson. And when he was named Sam, so I was like, all right, this guy is either the best friend or the sacrifice, right? And then he's an engineer, so means he's not really in control of anything. So he should be a minor character, but he's getting a lot of screen time, talking about his wife, talking about his unborn child, talking about him being owed R&R, and I was like, all right. Okay, so he can't be the best friend. This is going to be something bad. Like they didn't do like a bonding moment between him and the captain or nothing like that. So I was like, okay, so this guy is clearly going to die, right? And then once they introduce his family, the very next line is from Katrina's, the other commanding, the Alliance commanding ships, relative has a letter written that it was like, if I die, this is the letter that gets passed on, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, so that's foreshadowing, this guy's definitely going to die. But then when he did die, it was still satisfying, is like, see it coming the whole way. And it was still emotional, to some extent, but that's more, I don't know how many readers were, I don't know if you got an emotional pull out of it. I did because I could connect to that from my military background, limited military background. So it was, pulling at the, old memories and heartstrings and stuff like that. Not like bawling or nothing like that, but just like, damn, I know how that could be for some families,
It's all right, man. You want to cry?
It's okay. I don't have a problem with it, but I didn't in this case. It wasn't that emotional.
Yeah. No, it was. So basically, like at the end, I think it was something with the reactor. They jumpstart the reactor. They turn the reactor right. So they turn the reactors off to full Cat, who's coming in on Invictus. I think that the ship was called, to bring them in close up, because if one coming close, they can fire their primary weapons. The reactors failed because they joined the two together. Fritzy, who's a very good character, and she gets a lot of stuff later on. She then gets impaled by a load of metal. He has to go in there. It's radiation. He gets radiation.
Right.
Dies due to that. And I've just got to change my earphones. Out.
Yes.
Sorry, my earpod just died. Say something.
Can you hear?
Yeah, there you go. That's fine. I can hear you now. Sorry if you hear any echo come through. Yeah, if it echoes, I'm sorry. My earpod's just died. Yeah, so that's basically what happens to him and how he dies. I'm sorry, just put my things in charge. Cat, so they fire it up, they do get it up, they get the final shot, cripples the ship. And then Cat, so they don't actually kill him straight out, but part of the mission, what Cat got had to happen when she went over there, was if they lose, they can't come back. Because if they do come back, A, it'll be disgraceful then because of the way their system is, and B, it will show that they were being aggressive. So they were sent to be neutral. So because of this, she ends up blowing herself up, and the crew and everyone goes in a glory of death.
But if they win, but if they were to come in and win, what would happen?
So if they come in and win, basically they're very much on strength. So if they defeated whatever confederations there, if they do defeat them, or there's no one there and they can just hold the system, in 6 months the rest of the alliance will turn up, and then they'll basically eat the back end of the confederation while the confederation is trying to fight the union, which would definitely have gone south. So when you see the next 2 books, you realize like how if the alliance did actually move in, they would have sorry swearing, but done absolutely crumbled. They would have, which is good. But see, but this is the sorry, I'm stoned. One of the things is a lot. Cat has children and stuff, so it's not really a spoiler, but he brings them in later books as well. They're not major characters, but every stuff that happens in the first book has a big ripple effect. Just so you kind of like for other books get an idea. Like this book is a very main point and affects a lot of decisions that happen later on.
Okay.
Just so you're saying, yeah.
Find out.
I just charge one ear up so I can hear out one ear now.
You're making this better. At first, I wasn't even sure if I would continue the series, but
it does get better. Like it's so the ship. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil stuff. I'll talk about. So like the ship battles ramp up. So you still have like your one-on-one fights. There's other ships around, so there's bigger battles, and then there's advanced tech that turn up. Over the next 2 books, and then I believe the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th book takes a big chill. They kind of go off in another direction, do some stuff in some certain areas. Issues occur, which then cause internal issues with other groups. I can't. It's just so spoilers.
Yeah.
But so many different things happen. The war with the Union and Confederation raging and then slowing down and then raging, and then 3rd and 4th parties come involved, and a lot of stuff that was touched on the first book gets expanded on with added new stuff.
Okay.
Some of the stuff is kind of like you notice it straight away, like okay, they're going to come back to that, and then a couple of books later, once those stories are done, they then come back to that original thing, and then yeah. There's a lot of stuff happens. There's
I hope so in 18 books.
It's a good series. I mean, 18 books and people.
The books. So Jay Allen's definitely wrote a series. It's selling. To get 18 books out of it is incredible. The Blood in the Stars fan base, definitely there exists, and there was definitely better than most of the books that I read in this genre, which this is your jam, right? I'm coming way more into the fantasy and sci-fi side. Like Red Rising is, and the Sun Eater series is like things that I really enjoy. So to go into this type of genre, it's doing well, very well.
So compare this to. Sorry, I got my daughter's toys. It's on the sofa next to me. You know that it's like one of the go in your mouth.
Yeah, you're training her to be a clinical hygienist. The stuff that happens on these streams, rather.
Yeah. The Lost Fleet. I prefer this fighting style to the Lost Fleet. Now it does come a lot more speed up and a lot more battle happens and stuff, like faster pace. But I still prefer this because I feel like, well, I mean, the Lost Fleet, they just zoom past each other, don't they? And either take damage or they don't. And there's a slow build up. The battle happens, ships fly about, and it's sort of done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I do.
I do prefer this to that. Something I do like is ships taking damage, and then how the damage affects the ships. And you have the crew, like the engine crews of Fritzy and Sam, and there's another guy as well who are kind of the main characters down there, and they're working hard. And what he does well is to show that he even says it in the book vaguely, like, you know, captains do the captains do, the gunners do what the gunners do, and everyone does what they do. But if the mechanics and the engineers don't fix ships or get ships fast or fix the stuff, you can't do nothing.
Right.
And it brings a lot of light to the internals of a ship, and like there's a lot more that goes on than just the gunners, you know, and the captain, which I really liked and appreciated that what he does or he did and how he done it.
Yeah, no, I think Jay Allan did an excellent job with. It almost felt like Star Trek episodes, and I know I'm comparing this a lot to other media, but I think to do the analogies is the best way to do it. You know, you have the scene when they're, you know, in the engineering bay, and that's when they're there. It's those characters' story, right? And the
Mm,
impacts of the other scenes, you know, up on the bridge or in the enemy combatants, you know, carrier or whatever ship type it is, uh, are those decisions that are happening in basically these other settings are causing actions and issues and reactions and conflict to happen in when they go back to the other area, right? Yeah, and
mm.
that I think is handled very well. It's like you're cutting from scene to scene, and they're all connected because the plot line's going through. That was done very
Yes.
well and made it interesting. And again, with like you said, the other off ship forces and stuff like that. It was that wasn't as impactful and not as memorable as the ship fighting. Um, but it's also, you know, I don't think it's that kind of from release off the first book. It's not that kind of book where we're going to get down into the Marines and we're going to spend a third of
Yeah.
the book down there. Like it's not going to be that.
Pretty much, not all books, but most of them, like, there are like ground forces, and they do have their moments, but it is ships. That's what it's about. It's about the ships fighting and beating each
Right.
other up. Um, and it just, yeah, basically, like each book is pretty much like this regarding, like, you have a little bit of ground forces, but the only difference is the political and um, the spy and all of that game is ramped up a lot more
Okay.
in the other ones, which sometimes, I will be honest, it can not get repetitive, but it's kind of like you kind of know where it's going because it's not in a bad way, just formula to these books at work. You know what I mean? And some things is like they try again. Mostly the Union side, they do a lot of they try this, it doesn't work. They try this, doesn't work. Try this, doesn't work, and it does get a bit repetitive with that. But when the story changes, like it does, it freshens up a lot of stuff. Trying to explain stuff without spoiling.
No, I know it's
You know what I
difficult.
mean? Um,
So how would you compare this to other long running series? I'm trying to think. I mean, we have the Lost Fleet to go off example of, or you know, Culture, or you know, like a Dresden Files, Wheel of Time. Like, is there a consistent build up as each time it goes through, or is it more of we were here and now we're over here because this is a vast universe, right? Do you know what I mean? Is it we're dealing with these characters and they're getting better and
so
stronger, or more, you know, more depth to the characters, like the Expanse, right? More character interaction, like
yes. So yes. So like it's a military space opera, military sci-fi sort of thing. So it's more about the ships and explosion of the battles. That is what this is about. That's what
okay,
the story is. So that is like the main. You know what I mean? So once you so everything else it does. So the characters do grow. Um, Tyler Barron, he goes through a few like bits like this. He meets a person and they have their thing and new characters, and there's a lot more character point of views doing their own little stories here and there. And that's my hands all over the camera. Sorry. Something will happen in book two, which will affect book three, four. So there's a lot more forward planning with stuff, and
okay,
it's not. Um, go over here and this happens and that. It's like all the stories get wrapped up and a new story will start mid story to carry on. So then once that one story finishes, the other story's already started, or it's mid started, or you see there's seeds have already started happening, or they've spoken about something, and there's a lot of fighting that happens all over the place, and everything's wrapped around obviously the battles and fighting because that's the main drive of the books. People do die. Not as many as you'd think, but people do die, which is I do find good. This is obviously later in the series. There are some satisfying deaths. Finally, finally,
about time they killed them. Kind of.
Like, there is a shot. Yeah. There's one of those things that's like, God, it took him a little while to get that one. There is a very surprising death. Something else I will say, because I listened to it on the audiobook. Now I enjoyed the narrator who done this one, but the guy who does the next books onwards does a really good job with all the voices. I would advise you to try at least one book on narration.
Okay. Well, I did listen on Audible. I had the physical copy. Yeah, I had the physical. I like having both.
Oh, okay.
And so,
okay. So this guy found him very slow how he spoke. I don't know if you noticed that. Well, you speed your voice up, don't you?
Yeah, if they're talking like this throughout the thing, that thing's getting kicked up. Nothing too crazy, but at least 1.75 to 2. You know, especially if they're slow in terms of the words per minute. As long as the prose isn't too detailed, and this was not, flowery prose. So
yeah. So the guy who does the next ones, he does all of them. He's really, really good, and the characters really feel like their characters, and the accents of everyone is solid. I personally find that absolutely really, really good. He has a lot more depth to his voicing as well. One thing I did notice is most of these people's voices are very southern. Have you noticed that? They're all southern across, like, I know they're Confederates, but come on, man, they're all real southern down there.
Right.
They change it up, which is nice.
Jeffrey Kaffer.
Yeah, I think that's the geezer. Yes.
The Luke Daniels narrated the first one here.
Yeah. It was this book is why I actually started speeding and listening to stuff faster, because I was like, oh, this is a bit slow. This is not loads, but yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else now, really. For me personally, overall, I enjoyed it because I like ship battle and stuff, and I like damage being taken to the ships. So like the ship is actually a living or character itself.
Okay.
So like when the ship takes damage, they have to deal with the damage, work with the damage, fix the ship so the ship can continue fighting and stuff. I do like that. It's something that another series, which it's an alright series, it's more ground fighting than space. But I think it's called Iron Dogs. That's a good. I do like that. That was a good series. It's definitely a lot more ground fighting and whatever. Narration. I don't like the narrator for it though. I've done all that on paperback. But yeah, no. Overall, I thought it was good. Well, I mean, I'm up to book 13 or whatever. So
yeah, no, clearly,
I have to get going.
So what was your biggest con then? If the book was good and stuff like that, just so I think we talked pretty positive about the books.
So
it stumped you. You can't think of anything bad about it.
What's hard is because I've listened to it 3 times now, so I know everything really well. And when I've listened to the other books, so much more has come out of it. So it's hard to like think about what I didn't like about this book. What decisions were made bad?
So how about
what didn't you like? Tell me. It might jog my memory.
Yeah.
What didn't you like?
The cons that I have about the book, one is that there's never a surprise. It does very good job at foreshadowing, but the foreshadowing is kind of bonked over your head
Mm,
so much that it's
yeah.
there's very little surprise. At least there was none in the first book. Um,
Yes. No. Yeah, I'll agree with that. And that happens a lot. That is something that I will say with this. He does foreshadow stuff. You know. Yeah. Apart from a couple things like, oh, other than that, yeah. Um. Go on.
no,
Sorry.
no,
I
no, yeah,
apologize for butting to you.
that's exactly what this is, man. And
Yeah. Uh,
so yeah, so the foreshadowing was definitely it. Uh, he does a good job with, like I said, connecting the different sections in terms of whatever the issue or conflict or plot device happened in this section, it affects the other section. But there doesn't seem to be any relationship connections between characters that are in different areas of like the ship or on the ground. Like um there doesn't seem to be a lot of like, these people care about these people or crosshead. Like I didn't see. Usually there's
mm,
supposed in other books of this, like they'll have some time where they go into a communal area where there be so and so's office or
yes.
the galley
Or the
or
captain
something
goes
like
for a
that
walk.
where you could have some interaction, right? And
Hmm.
so there was all the development stays inside of either the character themselves or in their area that they have. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yes.
and so
Because that's something that Jack Campbell does really well with the Lost Fleet is he'll go for a walk, see the crew. Because he even
exactly.
points out, go see my face, let him see my face, go out and do that. He'll eat with people, like forcibly make himself eat just to show his face. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
agree
like
with that one.
Bobbyverse series, again, it's different type of series, but they'll have their virtual meetings and whatnot, and so there's a lot of character interaction. And
Mm.
these characters tend to only interact within their given area, but they does a much better
Their
job
bubble.
in terms of
Yeah.
having the characters that they don't have a lot of interaction with have huge impacts on the decisions that have to come out of that other area. So it's like if it was on a balance, you like gained in one area, but lost in another. And so, if that
Mm.
happened, I thought that would be better. Um, the names of the ships threw me off, and because we read so many Lost Fleet books with Joe, like
Mm.
in the previous series that we were doing the read along, and so having the Invictus and the Dauntless, and I'm sure I would have felt the same way if it was we
Yeah.
did this series first and then went there. But I'm like,
The other way around. Yeah.
is all the ships in these like, the, space operas are gonna be pulling from the same bag, and, and so, especially inside of the Confederacy, for me, if this is a metaphor for the Western, like it's very common for like the heroes to be named after, right? U.S. names presidents, after naval ships and things like that. Like I thought that is an easy opportunity to provide world building. If the Alliance would have had a Regulus,
Mm.
ship, because that's the last name of Katrina, and right, and she's like captain or admiral of their, commander of their own, named vessel, named after, her great father or whatever. I think it's an easy way to world build, and so when they just end up with these like heroic, Romanesque, based names off of like victory or being undefeated or whatnot. I think
Hmm.
it's just not that interesting, because it's starting to happen more and more. And these aren't the only two books that use those, you know. Um, so Leviathan, is another one that's it's like, okay, we got it. It's a really big ship, right? Um, so
Hmm. Yeah.
that's one thing. Um, the the interaction with the ground forces as well. Um, some other ones, and I'm sure this could happen later, with boarding parties and things like that, and the interactions of therefore could be interesting. Um, there's we didn't see a lot on the Alliance side, where we're told that there's a caste system, right? And at least in book one, that's all we get, is that we're told there's a caste system. There was a lot of the backstory and world building was teased very well, and so that was a huge pro. Is like, wow, this world's really big, and we're getting little pieces of it, but the story has to keep drumming along. So we're not going to dive into that a lot. So good on the fact that you explained that there's a much deeper world to this to have us care about, but we didn't get to see hardly any of it at all. You know what I mean?
So yes, so I did say this earlier. Like the way he compared the two captains and the ships were very on your nose all the time. How like, this captain's really good. You know what I mean? And she's saying the same about him, and then the pilots were like, it's so good, and then the other pilot, and then all the way down to they was all very complimentary of each other. They wasn't complimenting each other, but they was very complimentary about the fact of how good they are to each other. And like that was overdone, personally. I feel he could have toned that down just by showing their actions rather than actually saying it. So my dog's whimpering. You know what I mean? Like just by like, having a hard. We've lost a few more now. These guys are, you know what I mean? Whatever. Not so much. God, it's really good. You know, I don't know. The one, like I say, there was a link between the captain and Fritz. That was very good. The way he would phone her up or not, comms or whatever. That was the only link. So I keep waving my hands about. I apologise. Come look at myself waving my hands about. They were linked up, but then the fighters, they were sort of their own little story, and they had their own little bubble, like you said, and they were doing whatever they was doing, and there wasn't really much. There was nothing between the captain and the fighters, or like the XO and the fighters. There was a little bit between Fritz when there was an emergency, like Fritzy, what's going on? Like, come on, I need them engines or whatever, you know. But then in real life, if you're the captain on the ship and like going down, do you phone up your engineering and your fighter wing up? Would you do that personally much, or
say that again?
you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't really be getting in contact with your fighter wings and stuff personally through the bridge. So, and because he never left the bridge, there's none of that opportunity to do what you said about talking, like in a communal area, because they weren't really.
Yeah, but that stuff could exist. Like,
yeah. No, I agree. I'm just saying. I think because of the setting and the time frame of how this fight was going on, he never left the bridge, did he? Because of how his character is.
He left to go
because
sleep.
If you could. Oh well, yeah, sleep. But I mean, he was up for like a day or two.
Right. So if I remember correctly, he went and slept, and then there was one moment where he was like trying to get some rest. I think he rested in like the seat or whatnot, and then they had a call between him and Fritz, and
Fritz, yeah.
Which definitely seemed to be named Fritz just so he could use that like Fritz and Fritzy, and like
Fritzy,
like there's very much a catchphrase almost tone to it.
I feel like because this was a bit more far, even though it seemed a bit slower in places, it was more of a faster paced battle. Even though like they stopped and went for a bit, like when it was happening, it was going at it for a while, weren't they? But like compared to Lost Fleet, they'd fly past each other, smash each other to pieces, and then they would have to go off and turn around for like half a day or a day, wouldn't they? So then they had downtime a lot more, and like the traveling, you know what I mean? Because they go a lot faster.
I think that the combat was more interesting than the combat in the Jack Campbell's Lost Fleet series, but I think that the combat that was in the Lost Fleet series was intentionally done that way. Because it was very much more about the setting up of the formations and the overall strategies that are being like this character is the strategic guy, right? And that is the pros and cons and
Hmm.
decisions about changing that, as opposed to the tactical. This was more tactical in terms of, we're in this fight. Okay, they did this. We got to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. There's less setup,
Hmm.
even with the traps. Like, that was like within the span of the conflict already happening, you know?
Mm.
So it's
Yeah,
very much
no,
a
I agree.
stylistic thing.
Mm. Anything else do you want to add?
Um,
Notes down there.
yeah, I would have to say just my overall thoughts to kind of like sum up is my take on it. Um, the book did enough to actually be somewhat memorable. This was like, we started reading this at the end of last year, and so it was like, 30 books ago for me.
Mm.
And so um, the the surprise, and not surprise, but the sacrificial ending where he then triggers off that thing, that stuck with me. Um, the like idea of the combat stuck with me, and I thought so. Those things were very handled very well. They were memorable. It was interesting. It was entertaining. Overall, the book is just a very just good, solid book. Was this his first book? I didn't look that up. Was his debut novel? Because if it is, it's handled
I
very
think it was
well.
quite early. I don't.
You know what I mean? Like, I know I named a bunch of weak points,
I'm gonna have a look. Hang on.
but those were kind of like stylistic choices, or might be more genre based, right? Like you said, this is more about the ships. This is more about the explosions. More about the militaristic of it. And most of my issues had to do with like structure of the narrative, and the structure of how the characters have opportunities to interact, right? And so overall, I just thought it was just a super solid introduction to a book. It would be a very different book
I think
with another 100 or 200 pages, and that's not the type of books these are.
yes. I'm just having a look. I think this might be one of his first books. No, so he's got some other.
And this guy's based. He's American, European.
American. I believe he's American. I really am quite interested now.
Yeah. So he has the Crimson Worlds. There's another series that he's done. Um, and he has the Portal Wars. So he has several series out there. So he's definitely a prolific writer there. And okay, no, he definitely
Mm.
Crimson Worlds came out in 2012, and Duel in the Dark came out in 2016. So he's already written another series priors.
Okay, so done Crimson
Yeah,
World first then.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so it definitely it shows, that
So
he has some writing chops.
yeah, yeah. So he obviously, he obviously intended. You know what I mean? Give you a story, a solid story. These are characters, bit of a deal going on, bit and bobs around here. We know there's some other stuff going on. If you like it, there's more to come, sort of
Right,
situation. Yeah,
right.
that's it.
Is
Right, all right then. Right, well on
business
that
like.
note, anything else? there anything else you want to add? My earphones are about to die again.
No, I'm good, brother. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to you and your community.
Fine.
I know that you're continually to write in the Unity 151 world. Very much been enjoying following
Yes.
along. That you post everything to your. It has its own channel now, so looking forward to more of that coming out, and eventually, picking up that book in
Yes.
stores. You're almost done with it, right?
Yeah. So I've got. Yes. So I've got Uni 151 Universe is my second channel, and I write very short little stories that go on there. There's like a couple little audio logs. I get narrated and stuff like that. So I've got them on. I've got one more coming out. Well, the guy sent me the edits, the edits to the narration now. So I've got to sit down and do that. I might do it in the morning. Do that. Get another video out tomorrow. Then I've got so many stuff to come out on YouTube. My book is close. It's close to being finished to the first proper draft. Then I've got to re-edit it all, go through my notes and stuff. So I still feel a bit to do. I'm gonna try and get it out by winter. I keep pushing it back, but I've got to have so many different projects. I just never.
No, it's
I never
okay.
get time.
Is one spoiler? Is there a
Sure.
character that's known for wearing robes in it?
Well,
Yeah.
not yet,
Oh.
but there could be.
There's always potential.
That's it. I will say I have got a Dauntless in my. Now it's not a ship though, but I have a Dauntless in my story.
Okay.
But it's not a ship. So
Okay.
and my ship's names, because I know you said it's called Invictus or Dauntless stuff like that. I have actually world building, so every ship name is a reason for it. So it's
Good.
so there's like something called like Iridium Oak. So certain class ships will be called Metal and a tree name. Some are called like a Royalty and a female name, and then some are called. There's all certain ship classes called certain things, and then you have different royalty names and different species royalty names, and obviously each of these royalties will have some backstory. Not that you'd go into it, but there is thought behind the names than just this is a cool name, stick it on.
I appreciate that kind of detail.
Yeah, and even like a group that Unity fight is called Yertle. Yertle's names, their ships is like something. Remember something of something. So like I was gonna make up something. Remember series of Jane, just for example. It's not what it is, nothing like that. But it's so certain ships are called something. So then a specific person from a certain ship, a certain planet, who died in the battle. So the new ships will be called after that figure who was from that planet. And they've all got their own. I put a bit of thought into stuff like that as well.
That's cool.
So
So we recommend Jay Allan's book, Blood in the Stars, series. Duel in the Dark is the name of book 1. And then when Unity 151 Universe comes out, we'll have to recommend that too.
Well, I'd like to see what you think, because it's a dark sci-fi space opera sort of thing. So it's a bit more. It's a lot more bloodier and violent, and it's not super. But I do go in a bit more detail, gruesomeness to a degree, because I don't know, sort of adds a bit more to it, really. I don't like characters who are like, oh, they took a shot, I'm okay. Oh wow, the blaster just perfectly went for my arm. I'm still can move and do stuff. It's like, mate, your arm got blown off. There's blood all up the wall. There's no way you're doing something. Like, no, mate.
Consequences.
Yeah, and like people get ripped to pieces. I don't know. But yeah, so that's that. Right. Well, anyway,
People get
thank
ripped to
you.
pieces. Yeah, that's the way to go out.
Pieces. That's it. I do like. There's these little things called screamers. They're nasty. They're fluffy, horrible creatures, and they're violent. They're very violent. Yeah. Anyway, right. So Carlos, thank you very much for coming on. Go visit his channel. I will put a link in the description once it uploads and does tomorrow. Yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for listening. Hopefully there's more people listen when it's up tomorrow and so on and so forth. Woo.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. Well, that was it. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Good night.